Welcome to the Derek Loudermilk Show. This is episode 322 with the Indiana Jones of Superfoods, Darin Olien. Darin Olien is known as the Indiana Jones of Superfoods. He's the person who discovered and brought the world's healthiest nut to market. That's the Barukas nut. He's also the host of a popular TV show, Down to Earth with Zac Efron. That's a series on Netflix. And he's a New York Times bestselling author of Superlife. He hosts his own show, The Darin Olien Show, and he's helped millions of people wake up and live a healthier and more sustainable lifestyle. And in this episode, we're going to talk about his series that he's doing, some of the ways that our lifestyle and the products that we eat and consume are slowly killing us and what we can do about it. He's going to tell us the story of how he became a superfood hunter and his own spiritual quest. And as we record this, he joins me from his yurt on his land in California, which is because he doesn't have a house because it was destroyed in a fire 2 years ago. And he's going to talk about the process that he's going through to completely rebuild his home and his lifestyle in a futuristic and sustainable, eco-friendly way. So you're really going to love this interview with Darin Olien. Darin Olien, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Derek, great to be here. Look forward to jumping in and seeing where we go.
Yeah, you've got such an incredible, diverse life. I thought we'd start with talking about how you think differently. You know, when your Superlife book came out a few years ago, and it thinks about food and health in different ways than some people, and maybe people have caught up to that thinking a little bit. But where are you still thinking differently than most people, or where are you still ahead of what you see people in the field of health and diet? Where, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't quite look at it like that. So it's a kind of I don't know. It feels like that would hit my ego a little bit trying to answer that. And really it's, you know, if I look back at the origin of me traveling was really innocently out of looking and meeting, looking for the plants, the botanicals, how they were grown and who was growing them and what the culture is and how the people were treated. That was an innocent look. And in that innocence and curiosity led me to things that no one's seen, and some of which some botanicals were being lost forever. For example, well, maybe not forever, but being lost in the cultures. Many even in South America had lost the culture of this incredible plant. One of them being Sacha inchi, which was an incredible plant-based protein, as well as an omega-3, 6, and 9. And even within South America, many didn't know about it. And there was only a few people still trying to get it out there, but kind of losing the game. And that was revered by the Incas for a very long time. So when I saw it and I saw the profile and I met the people that were doing it and realizing that it was intimately connected to the outskirts of the Amazon and the indigenous people, then I got really excited because I was always excited about the nutritional side. So I think to kind of roundaboutly answer your question, as I was pursuing one botanical, I would run into 10 others that I never heard of or I didn't know enough about. And then it would just open up all these other things. I mean, I think, you know, people got excited about camu, and largely the world doesn't know much about it. And it's one of the highest vitamin C sources naturally in the world. And everyone can understand about vitamin C, but they don't understand about the non-reductionism side of vitamin C in terms of just a plant-based, fully intact vitamin C within the plant, which also has pleomorphic effects on the body, on the physiology. So I think all of these things really came about from just looking and showing up. And in the showing up, you realize you've learned so much more from the actual people on the ground, from the researchers in indigenous areas that you're never, ever going to find on a Google search. So no, Google doesn't have all of the information. Google is not the brains of the world. It is, there is still massive amount of information that needs to get out from, a great ethnobotanist of our time, Dr. Michael Ballack, still spends his life going to cultures and notating their indigenous ways, their medicinal plants, their languages, like that kind of thing. Now, I'm not nearly doing that. I'm just kind of scratching the surface of that. So I think any of that stuff that I think from a health perspective or a nutritional or botanical, it really is that curiosity. Now, I will also say on the cutting edge of that, there's a new compound and some I just signed on with a company. If you go to Osmotin, we can put it in the show notes, osmotin.com. It's a new compound from kiwi leaves and some other botanicals, and then it's proliferated this anti-aging compound within these plants that are blowing people's minds in terms of the regenerative aspect of this compound, and it has literally not been created in the world in this way in a botanical form. And so this kind of thing, no one knows about that. Like very, very, very few people know about that, nor is it accessible to populations of people that it's showing, and research can very much benefit from it, from neurological support, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. So there's a lot of compelling research. So from that perspective, I think, is it my pursuit to be on the edge? No, it's really the pursuit of the deepest intention, is that's to improve the lives of people, improve my own life, improve the lives of people that are suffering, improve the lives of animals and sentient beings from suffering, and also improving the alchemy of humans as it relates to this deficit on the environment. And many people use terms climate change and all of that stuff. I kind of steer away from politically charged terminology and go more into common sense systems of balance that were clearly out of balance. And one of those ways that I'm kind of poking back at that is my on my podcast called that segment called Fatal Conveniences, where
I love it.
where I really break down this insanity that we've done as experimental, really bad idea of experimenting with largely 60 to 90 chemicals, 60 to 90,000 new chemicals being emitted in our atmosphere, in our environment every year, most of which 9% of them are even remotely being tested. And largely we have no idea the accumulative effect of that. So all of these pursuits, I think, are just ways of following my heart and following my greater intentions, not even unpacking, which would be a whole nother podcast, the clean energy tech that I'm involved in, from air motors pulling nitrogen out of the air, liquefying it, being a HVAC system, being a power source system from the air, being horsepower from the air, and a micro grid possibility for the Aboriginal people in Australia and everyone else therein, as well as looking at companies that are building things differently, as well as looking at new kind of Roman concrete for my own building of my own house that can't be burned, that can't be destroyed from the natural environment, at least for the next 2,500 years. So anyway, there, it's just I think it's the pursuit and it's the energy that I put out in terms of what I'm curious about. And then it seems to create uh, a magnet for other people dedicated to this stuff. Yeah, I've met shysters along the way. Yes, I've invested and lost money. Yes, I've ran into things that are too good to be true, and they don't work. I've all of that stuff, but I have an insatiable kind of drive that now over the years I'm kind of weaning out and weaning out the riffraff and
Yeah.
understanding, doing enough due diligence on the things I'm involved in to push that envelope. And it really is, the funny thing is, going back to that fatal convenience, it's really not, I don't think of it as, again, the ego side of it is like, oh, I'm pushing the envelope, or that this is my goal. It's really going back to common sense that we all can understand food sovereignty, health sovereignty, power sovereignty, water sovereignty, hell, self freedom sovereignty that we're being strangled with right now. And the whole COVID, there's a lot of censoring ship and all that stuff. So I'm about empowering yourself, open up your consciousness to explore yourself. And as you understand yourself and the radar of that kind of, call it what you want, your own energy, your own essence, your own divinity, your own connection to the universe, I think that's the greatest tool that we have. And I kind of go back to that. Anyway, I'm just going off on
Now
many
this is really cool.
tangents,
And
but
what I feel from you is I feel excitement and energy. Like I can, we're talking about all these different things, but it's like I feel the core of this like excitement driven from curiosity. It's really interesting that you mentioned censorship. I actually, for the first time ever, experienced that yesterday. I'm not sure exactly why, but Facebook stopped showing my posts to my family and friends, and I was like, oh, it feels like, whoa, it's kind of creepy, kind of weird to actually experience it. I had other people do it, and so maybe where I want to go is in light of the fatal conveniences idea, and that we all sort of know intuitively like what makes sense. Like it makes sense to eat fresh vegetables, or it makes sense to have access to clean water, and yet like our systems sort of push us in the opposite of the common sense. And I think sometimes what people are wondering is like, what, I can live as purely and cleanly as my heart will tell me, and yet the system is like pushing against me. And if we just fix maybe the incentives at the very, very top, that would change everything. How do you think about, one example is, I think JP Morgan Chase, right, shut down Tesla's competing energy system because it was ruin his copper mining or something like that, right? So how do you think about like, maybe we could just make one big change at the top, or what can one person do to sort of create the world that they want on their own?
yeah, great question. I think, we have so many conflicts of interest. The more I've dived into fatal conveniences and seen where the research and see who's making the money on everything from deodorants that have mercury in it to, petroleum in our plastics, to all of this stuff, you realize that the information is there, but they've suppressed it, and then we've gotten used to the system. And that system is largely killing us in some way. It's destroying our lives in some way. When every child that's born in the US has 200 carcinogenic compounds in the umbilical cord upon birth, we realize that we have created a world that is not in synergy with nature. And in fact, it's actually the opposite. And we are nature. And so, not to mention, we're looking at nature, seeing the destruction, we're having it push back on us, and we're also dying of degeneration. We're literally breaking down in front of ourselves with ourselves. So, is it daunting to realize that there's a few players at the top. There's a few entities and companies and people that are absolutely conflicted upon profit over health, profit over your health, profit over the environment, profit over the health of animals, etc., profit over the sovereignty of our indigenous people throughout these lands. All of this stuff, it's happening. So this is what I believe. We have to make ourselves ridiculously aware of our individual exposures, which is why I'm doing Fatal Conveniences every week, so that we're not burdened, destroying ourselves, suppressed, and unhealthy. Because if we're unhealthy, we have no energy to do anything. We're sitting on the couch and we're zombies to the compromised media that we think, in some level, I mean, I have friends that still believe that this mainstream media is literally a neutral ground. Well, clearly isn't. So, we have this thing where I believe in individual power. The awakening of the individual is the single greatest thing that we can do, because an awakened one person can affect the lives of millions and millions of people. And if every person takes this on and eats a little better, sleeps well, cares for your friends and family, sends love to the things and the people that you care about, becomes aware that these entities, from toothpaste, deodorants, to cell phones, up to our craniums, to EMF things, all of this stuff, to realize that this is biological consequences. Do I have a cell phone? Of course. Do I have an EMF blocking device on it, safe sleeve? Of course. Do I have a Faraday cage over my Wi-Fi router? Of course. Do I have a blue shield device in my in my plug to proliferate biologically receptive frequency in my body, so my body's not focused on the EMF and disharmony? Yes. Do I have clean water? Yes. Do I vortate and create live water through the work of Schauberger and all of these great scientists? Yes. Do I eat amazing superfoods? Yes. Do I sleep well? Yes. Do I have blue blocking glasses on? Yes. Do I use organic shirts and underwear and EMF blocking underwear? Yes. Do I have loving relationships and radically honest with the people in my life to the best of my ability? Yes. So eating healthy, eating plants, eating micronutrient-rich food. Yes, 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 yes. So the more we can be aware of the world that is not helping us, and the more that person can wake up, that person, not judging other people. Being a leader is no judgment. Being a leader is acting from your heart and from what you know. If people ask a question, you give it. But don't judge people. We don't need any of that shit anymore. So I believe this awakening of everyone listening, they're listening right now at this moment in time and space, and they're resonating with something I'm saying. They're resonating with why they tuned in because of your show. And so they're listening right now, and something like a guitar string hitting a note is resonating in their heart, to feel and to hear something that's true for them, and to know that there is so many conflicts of interest that we have put these corporations above that. So yes, we need to take our power back. We need to take off the proverbial mask that we think these people have our best interest. When you can read 1 million articles, I can go to the top scientists that are friends of mine and go, that is not the truth. That is not the science. This is the science. So we need to awaken to what is happening, and we need to gain our power back, and then come together as communities, come together like we're doing right now, have conversations where we're not censored, where you and I can put out this information, and then we need to rise up. We need to absolutely demand of our governors. I mean, this idiot Newsom making these things in California, like that's telling us that, and this is all I'm going to say about COVID, but telling us that we have to limit my Thanksgiving. Let me make my freaking choice who and what. If something is 99.9% not even going to affect me in my life and my loved ones, and you're going to tell me who I can hang out with in Thanksgiving, you can go to my you can take that and sit your ass down. Your government has no control and should have no control over something that is my choice and the friends and family that I want to hang out with. So that's all I'm going to say about that COVID thing. But that's the point. We need to awaken with what's true for us and pull that power back and gain, physiologically be healthy, biologically be healthy, chemically be healthy, spiritually be a freaking rock star and be connected to your truth and your divinity, and not judge people, not shame people, and lift people up. If we could all do right now, from Thanksgiving all the way through the holidays and beyond, instead of going on Instagrams and going to all these places and shaming people and do this, do that, find the common good that we all want to be happy and healthy. So let's create that as a foundation, and then let's change the world. If the world is not what we like it the way it is right now, let's change it. And the only way is pushing back on people that ultimately are making choices way, way beyond what is necessary and what is correct.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Native American, the two wolves, the one, and which one are you going to feed? And the one wolf is like greed and fear and ego and the bad things. And the other one is, peace and joy and harmony. And I think most people think they're feeding the good wolf. They're like, well, I'm good. I like myself. I'm feeding the good one. But when you're talking about all these things, having a Faraday cage and blue blockers and all these things, that's, very clearly like, you can't make decisions from the heart if you're living in fear or greed. And so if you make the choices in your life that pull you away from the sort of the dark wolf to the light wolf, then it's just going to naturally follow that you will be able to make these decisions.
100%.
I'm thinking about, because you're just speaking so powerfully. I love it. I was watching some of your show, Down to Earth, with Zac Efron, and it sounded like he approached you and said, I want to use my influence. I'm an influencer, I'm well known, and I want to use that as leverage. And I've just been thinking, like a lot of people are influencers or micro influencers to some degree. How should I'm not sure what should my question be here? How can influencers like really influence outcomes versus just, like instead of just building followings and living in sort of this digital world, like what's your recommendation for influencers or entrepreneurs?
Yeah, good question. Do not ever think about the numbers or money. I mean, as the starting point, like if that's your goal exclusively, everything needs to be sustainable, and you need to also listen to that. Like, is this going to make money is a great question, because if you want to influence things and change things and you want it to be sustainable, asking is this and could this make money is a good idea. Is this or could this bring in more people that would resonate with my message? Those are great questions along the way. But you have to, again, it's an inner thing. What are you excited about? And what are you wanting to investigate, look at, learn about, explore? What is that inside? And the trick is these things are potentially be a little feather's touch that we blow off for a week, a month, a year, a decade, 2 decades. And if you accelerated and brought in death, now listen to me, if you bring in the death of you and say you are on your deathbed and you got to be radically honest with how you're living your life, what do you want to create? How do you want to be? And who do you want to be? And that clears that shit up really quick. But you have to be willing to go there. And you know, that's the beautiful thing about, I'm reading this book literally about death and the Toltec shamans, which I studied for a long time. And that is, death is always stalking us. And if we are robotic and are living our life outside of our passion and our heart, it's not a good day to die. That's why the Native Americans, going back to that, you know how they say that? They're going out, they're battling for their lives, they're battling for their homes, their families, their food, against the atrocities that have happened to them. Well, one of their slogans is, it's a good day to die, because they're in alignment with every bit of what they know is true. What if you approached your business, your messaging, your passions from that perspective? Number one, it will clear it out whether that passion is that really something, or are you doing it because you saw someone else doing it and they got a lot of following, or they have a lot of following and you're just kind of following along, or you read some how to make, you know, money quick and you're following some stupid program, or you're following some person that promised they could get you 10,000 more followers, all that crap. It's like, there's nothing wrong with those things, but when misidentified and misapplied and misaligned, then there's no juice behind it. There's no real, again, I was superfood hunting because I needed to, because I knew what I was seeing was crap. I knew that I absolutely need to look in the eyes of the farmers and put my hands in the dirt. The reason why I got down to earth was Zac reached out to something he heard me authentically talking about on a podcast years ago. He didn't know. I didn't know. I wasn't bringing to that meeting. I was meeting a kid that was interested in what I was doing. So we met, resonated, had a great time. At the very end, he said, "What else are you up to?" I said, "I have this idea for this TV show." I wasn't pitching him on it. I was just telling him about it. He calls me 2 hours later. He goes, "I love that idea. I talked to my team. I have a Netflix show sitting there, but the idea, the concept of that, I don't want to do. My team said that we can turn it into your concept." And so that then evolved into this beautiful concept of everyone contributing to it on production. So I wasn't running around pitching superstars. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I wasn't running around knocking on Zac Efron's door going, "Please, go, come on this journey with me. I really want to do this." Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's just not how it went down. It came down by way of a resonation. It came down by authenticity. I live this way, I am this way, and I'm speaking clearly about who I am. That's what he resonated with. So much so, he was willing to walk me into a deal. The point is that life opens up in a massively different way when you get out of here in your head and you shift into your heart, and you bridge that gap between your head and your heart. If your heart and who you are and what you are is resonating with your truth, that if that could be starting with playing the piano, it could unlock something that you don't even know yet. It doesn't have to be a perfect business. You don't have to know what my career ultimately will be, but you have to start saying yes to who and what you are and what you know. Once you say yes to that and take action on it, then it opens up a whole nother set of doors, and the universe then gets really good at going, he received that or she received that information. Now that's a muscle that I'm going to keep focusing on. So it's a start and stop. Obviously things happen. It's not perfect. We're constantly learning. but that, to the best of my ability, is how I listen to myself, and it's a daily practice, and how I continue to move forward. Like just this morning, I have, I don't know, 15 different businesses I'm involved in, at least, and more is just adding up. And I sat after meditation, and I just started writing a list and then reprioritizing each one of them, going, no, this one needs more attention. No, this one, no, these don't need attention right now. And literally just start moving them around. And then I just sat and stared at it and go, okay, that feels good. That priority feels good. Now I can go in my world and if I'm given $10 a day and the amount of energy that I have, now that I know the priority, I can put a little more, quote unquote, my money or my energy into those things that now I feel are better alignment with what I'm doing and where I'm at right now. So that's where it kind of all comes down into the real world, where you can actually start applying this knowing and this passion that you're unfolding. And then also you may not know, sometimes I sit with an energy. I'm like, there's something about this business. There's something about, I want to plant more trees through barukas, yes, but then there's something else, and I'll just sit with it. And then all of a sudden, I get this organization called onetreeplanted.org, and we're planting trees in California. And I'm like, holy shit, that was that energy that I was sitting with. And 20 million trees of our target for barukas. And then next thing I know, I'm on a podcast with Sat Guru that I just planted. He's got a trillion tree goal, and this guy's planted, I think, over 150 million trees already in India. So next thing I know, just saying yes to that energy, taking some action, opened up this whole other world that if I didn't take the action, the world wouldn't have opened up. And that's where people get in their head too much. But it's also, you got to feel it in your heart. You got to allow it to go to your head, so your head can then, or your mind can take action on it and be the facilitator of your truth, rather than trying to figure everything out first. It's the opposite.
This is amazing. What specifically? Maybe I missed this. You had this inkling of the idea about trees, and then what was that action? What did you mean by taking?
Yeah. So, the first action we took was, we knew that our barukas, the barukas nut, we knew that in the Cerrado we were seeing this devastation and trees being cut down. So years ago, when we started the company, in our pillar, every 5 pounds of barukas we sell, we're planting a tree, and we have 20 million trees to plant. But then I was sitting with that program, and I'm like, there's a way that we can improve that program. But then I was thinking about the fires in California. Obviously, I lost my house 2 years ago. There was more fires, and I was sitting with, like, what can I do here in California? What can I do? And I'm just sitting, and I didn't know. I didn't have that information, but I was feeling something. And then next thing I know, this One Tree Planted reached out, and I had several conversations. I'm like, these guys are badasses. This is amazing what they're doing all over the world. But then creating a program, they gave me my own, it's a nonprofit, my own program that we're launching. Probably by the time you launch this, we'll be launching that program for the next few months. People will be able to donate $1 and it will plant one tree. Amazing. And we will also have $10 and a tree, a person in California, a literally tree that's been vetted, a few different types of oak, et cetera, can literally, as a sapling, show up to your house, and you can literally plant it with your family and post about it and share that. And now we're helping to replant California because the ecosystem is off. The ecosystem, because of grasses that were not endemic to the balance of this ecosystem, grow way too fast. And so then they create another fire danger before the other ecosystem can fully recover and then be ready for the fire to come through again, because that's supposed to happen. But what happens is the trees and the indigenous plants that were already here can't withstand another fire, because all these grasses grow way too fast, and then it creates another fire danger. So we have this world where we have to, as humans, step in, because as humans, we've created a imbalanced ecosystem.
Yeah, I love it. It's like the citizen science, or the crowd, almost like a crowd-funded eco caretaking. Yeah. Let's talk about your house and the fire. And in the very last episode of Down to Earth, I didn't realize that you were totally out of contact, and this fire came and it burned your house. You didn't know it, and then you got back into service range, and your house was gone. And here you are, you're recording this in your yurt on your land. That was a pretty emotional point of the series. I'm just wondering if, maybe you could tell us, what it felt like at the time, and then how that changed you, or how that's like become part of what's driving you.
Yeah, I mean, it was, probably, one of the probably top three hardest things in my life. Losing my father was for sure the most difficult thing in my life. Losing this land and getting a divorce, right? So I got a divorce in 2018, excruciatingly painful, and I lost my house. So those things came as a 1-2 punch. But the house was it. I was in shock when it happened. When I got service again, we still had a few days left of filming, and the crew very much said, you can go home if you want. We totally understand. And I was like, then even on the show, that was a natural reveal where I was like, no, like, this is what it's about. Like, this is absolutely what it is about. Still in shock, not even under grokking or understanding what just happened. It's impossible. It's impossible to understand death as an acute thing. My father dying, losing everything, there was a death. And so the grief comes in a million different waves and a million different times. So I think the practice of grieving for my father was practice for this. And so I knew when my father died, it was so overwhelming that the voice inside of me just said, let it happen, let it all happen. You don't have to do anything with it. And so I would just let it happen. I would fall apart when I need to. I would cry. I would scream. I would be pissed off. And I'd allow it to happen with no inhibitions for that. And I think that's a very, very important aspect of our life. And grief can be infinite. It can be from a relationship. It doesn't have to be someone who died. It can be from losing. Millions of people have lost their jobs from this COVID insanity. It can be grief from that. It's important for us all to grieve. Only through healthy grieving, I really believe, plant creates the soil of our opportunity. So grieving the house and the loss, thank God my dog was okay. I had a suitcase full of clothes, and I had a car at the airport. And believe me, I was so grateful to have those things. And so finally coming back to the property, and then important that I saw that everything was destroyed. Every little barn, motorcycle, heirloom, other vehicles, other precious pictures, and a million different things. It was important that I saw that it was all gone, so that the next wave of grief could certainly happen. Now, just moving through that, that takes however long it takes, without letting it, pushing it down, not feeling it. You got to feel it. You got to feel it. You can't be afraid of feeling it and be sad and angry and upset and allow whatever happens. Through all of that, one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. I mean, I really believe that in every way. It deepened my sense of resolve. It deepened my sense of love for the people in my life, which was the most obvious. I had a lot of people that helped me out through that process and became closer as a result. So relationships deepened, and my passion for everything I was doing only grew. And it also then, what I'm doing on my property is doing everything differently, but acknowledging the ecosystem. So extremely excited about the world seeing what I'm doing on the property. And also we're potentially talking about doing a show based on that.
Yes, that's what I
And
was thinking.
yeah. So pushing all of the guys that, I mean, I have a house design, but it's using different materials. I have clean energy tech that I'm defecting from the grid, which is a whole nother legal thing. That is really a fight for not just myself, but for all of Californians and hopefully for the world in a sense. So there's a lot of things that I'm fighting for sovereignty, because there's a whole nother wave of bureaucratic insanity that I've had to go through, that ultimately I put this yurt up without anyone's permission, and everyone should be able to do that. I wasn't harming the environment. I wasn't bulldozing anything over. I was putting it up on a place that was already flat and ready and got solar. I have a well, so I have water. So the bottom line is that I can honestly say, from the depth of my being and my heart, I am, and this may sound weird to people, even though I wish it didn't happen. On the one hand, of course, I never want to go through that amount of pain. You never want to lose everything, but I accept it. And I believe it didn't happen to me like a victim. It happened for me in ways that I know and ways that I still may not know. But I'm absolutely grateful that it happened, because of all of the reasons that it enriched my life. As weird as that may sound, I mean that with everything that I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And you mentioned earlier that the Toltec shamans, and I believe from reading Carlos Castaneda books, the shaman Don Juan in there, he's talking about lose your past, lose your identity, lose your possessions, and then you won't be trapped by them. And it sounds like you've got all that without having to make the decision to do that. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you to like be someone without your possessions, or be someone without your history in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's an interesting dance, and I have a big reverence for Toltec shamans, and having studied with one who studied directly with Carlos Castaneda before Carlos Castaneda passed away. But yeah, and without the freedom and allowing this assemblage point, right? So the more that we dissolve our identity, the more we can move and be free and really then ask the question of who am I really? Who am I now without these possessions? Who am I, and where am I, and what am I? And so yeah, I mean, it's we are identified, and people, I would just I'll say this as a side note: anyone who's gone through loss, don't come up to them and say, yeah, it's just stuff. It's like such an unkind thing to say, and you have no context and have no business saying that if you haven't gone through it, because it isn't, because of course it's stuff. But we have, to your point, through our lives, we've attached ourselves to things. They become the house, the home. There's a reason why feng shui has been around for thousands of years. It becomes this extension of us, this energetic flow of our body and our home. And so it becomes fluid. And so when you have things that mean something to you, could be negative, it could be positive, it is not kind to say that it's just stuff without the nuance of all of it, because you have to grieve. What if if you want to say that, you want to pick, I would ask everyone, grab your most perfect heirloom of your great grandfather, your great mother, hell, your mother, your dad, the best picture that represents who they are, and then burn it and destroy it. Now see how that feels. Or have someone else come and grab it from you and burn it. How are you going to feel? Are you going to immediately just say it's just stuff? So it's not, there's a process that we all need to go through to grieve the detachment of all of that stuff. Yeah, it happened to me abruptly, like a Buddhist sand painting that they just finish and just wipe it away, you know? So yeah, it's incredibly freeing when you've kind of gone through the process of that grief. For sure, I was, and still am, wickedly excited about what I'm going to create. Now the trick is not be re-identified with all of that stuff and just do it because it feels good to do it. So what if we could just make that choice, not doing it out of, okay, then I will be healed if I create this perfect house, then I will be better, then I will be a greater, have greater status, like all of that stuff. That's the trick of the ego. The trick of the ego is very cleverly trying to grab itself and anchor itself into these identities. Now I'm just really having fun. I'm really pushing the envelope on all of these people that are helping me build my house. And I'm just like, let's look at Roman concrete. Let's look at these texts. Imagine doing all of that. Imagine creating a food forest that no one, like in this area. Imagine growing indigenously. Imagine plants. Imagine thriving through the life that's already here and allowing the animals and the sentient beings to just have a wicked playground. You know, it's like all of these things are just kind of the vision that I have. So I'm literally already experiencing most of the feelings of actually doing it. So when it manifests, it's just going to be manifested. But I literally was standing up on my mountain over here where the new house is going to be, as if I was in the house, feeling everything I was, looking at the same view that I would be in that house, and I just owned it. I'm like, I am in the house right now. I am looking at this thing. And so when it happens, cool. But it's already here. It's already in the energetic field. So it's just, you know, it's just like, it's just fun when it shows up, but it's not necessary. It's just, you know, I'm just going to keep pursuing it.
Yeah, anyway. Man, this is fantastic stuff. Very, very exciting. And I think a lot of people are going to be resonating with what you're saying, and it's so tangible, you know, moving towards all the things we want. I'd love to just give you the opportunity to, well, if there's anything you haven't mentioned that you think is important, to mention that, and then, you know, tell us where we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so I mean, DarinOlien.com. I can sign up for my newsletter. I've also got another newsletter for FatalConveniences.com, which is a fun thing. And then all the, you know, Instagram platforms, just Darin Olien. So yeah, I mean, I'm just cranking, having a good time, but on an absolute rad mission of helping people, helping the planet. And helping the sentient beings. And I would just say to people again that please stop the judgment of people. Don't be so political. Don't be so divisive. Let's go back into loving common sense. That's where I'm going. Sometimes I bump up against people that have different points of view. That's fine. I'm just moving hard, and I'm creating a nice this is what I will say, I'm creating a really cool program of information, people, researchers and students and internships, as well as regular people, to help create a community where we curate, find, support information about health, the environment, animals, all of that coming together so we can create a trusted source for ourselves. So I've started that program. We're asking anyone who's interested in being part of that ambassador team to jump on board, because we're no longer interested in receiving information from people that have interests that are not aligned and not from the truth. So that was a big thing that came from the show. A lot of Gen Zs, hundreds of thousands, reached out, and I think all of us can resonate with, I'm inspired. What do I do? Where do I go, and how do I get involved? So we're answering those questions to help people move forward so we can create the life and the world that we want.
Love it. Thank you for your work. Thank you for leading the way and living authentically. Thanks for coming on the show.
Brother, epic conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.